we mentioned that Asia has seen a lot of new biennials that are really related to the issue of the city and architecture, design, and how it can generate new social spaces. And this channel will be focused on that, run by Bauer, our Moderator of the forum, together with various biennials from Gwangju, from Guangzhou, and from Shenzhen. And yeah, let's go to the next panel.
In order to keep time, I encourage you to look into the booklet and read the basic activities by our speakers, but also the statements about the projects for Triennial. And also in order to allow some time for discussion, I would be very much and short. So I'm a very polite person. I want to provide all of us in order to debate. I also want to mention that it was a Grima maybe it was some editorial that has its goals. People didn't first speaker talk about Istanbul architecture design Biennale. Also this panel is addressing also the shift in Biennales to incorporate also a strong focus on design and architecture, but also how the approach towards architecture and design and urban intervention has changed with Biennales. So it's much more process oriented, addressing much more also design for the other 90% of urban interventions in a very different way. We also have first will have Ning will talk about the Shenzhen and Hong Kong by city, Biennale, addressing also the questions of transport between China and Hong Kong, and the difficulties of interaction on that level. Then we have Hyungmin, who was the chief curator for the Gwangju, the first edition of the Science Architecture Biennale here last year. And then we will have our last speaker for today, Wang, Huangsheng. But who will also speak a bit about Guangzhou, Biennial, that has a lot of architecture international and edition their portals, and that's always very active. So, with no further ado, I will give it to Ning, and we will address everything else later in the discussion.
Thank you. Okay, my biennial is the long name, Shenzhen and Hong Kong by-city Biennale of Urbanism and Architecture. So I think this is the only one biennial which put two cities together. The biennial started from 2005 and was curated by No1 for the first edition, and secondly in 2007 was curated by Grima in 2007, and my edition was in 2009. The update was curated by Terrence Library. So today I'm going to share some my idea about my edition. Let's see, Shenzhen. Shenzhen is the only big city in the world which was built from a fictional village to a big city in 30 years. It's a borderline city next to Hong Kong. It used to be a fictional village. In 1980, before it became the economy, special economy zone, still very peace and quiet. But after that, in 1996, the cohorts with the GSD of Harvard University in the research of the Moderator, he published this book. It found the so-called alternative modernity in the Moderator. It gave a great influence for my idea on this area where I grew up and worked on. And then, today, the Moderator already become major regions in southern China, put Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, No1, all the cities together as a major urban area. So Shenzhen is a result of the Chinese neoliberalism economy, and during these 30 years, it built from a small village to a big city. What I want to do is to criticize over-urbanization and to talk about the social equality. So that is why I also organized some topic on the rural development in this Biennale. And since I lived in Shenzhen more than 10 years, so when I curated Biennale, I did not write any academic essays for the Biennale, but I write literary essays to share my personal experience and then to set up the exhibition narrative of the Biennale. So this is quite different from a normal Biennale model. And look at this. This is the manual. It's a square, civil square in front of the broad-light government building. This is very popular in China. Each city has a square in front of the government buildings. But there's only one function that the government wants to show off their political power. So normally the space totally empty, nobody uses it. So I put this kind of space, it's the same as a prison. It means the government wants to use this kind of space to control the society. So what we want to do is trying to persuade the government to allow us to use this square. I'm trying to organize some playful installation or temporary architecture, trying to activate this space as a successful public space, to engage people, to use it, to share it, to become a good space for the city. So we invite a lot of young architects and designers and artists from all over the world to build this kind of installation on the street. All this actually costs a lot of money. It's a huge installation, but we try to use this kind of installation by the ordinary people. Since time is very limited, I just have a quick review for you. And architecture, this is my favorite slogan. And this is the most successful piece by the San Francisco-based artist group. They installed this in the center of the city, so a lot of people and children use it and praise it. The inspiration by Fujimoto, the young architect from Japan. We also try to install artificial pool inside the Biennial. This by the Chinese architect Liu Jiahe is quite similar to the idea of the architect in 1960 from the UK. But we realized it as a very successful public space for the people for tea and gathering. And we also invited Taiwanese architect Ning Jun, and he invited 3 migrant workers from Guangzhou to build this bamboo pavilion in front of the skyline. We also have to realize artist Shenzhen's unfinished projects in front of the shopping mall in the city. Okay. Besides the exhibition, we also organized a marathon conversation with both by local artists and cultural artists to invite about 30 Chinese intellectuals to have a conversation with the tourist guests. We try to scan a group projects of the Chinese intellectual and to discuss what is the Chinese future. So this is my map of the conversation. Okay, and then we publish the document of the conversation. At the same time, I'm also trying to bring the literature for the architecture Biennale. I invite 10 writers, select 10 famous buildings in China, in different cities, and invite 10 writers. Each writer write a novel regarding the architectural space, and then we publish a book in English and Chinese. So, like, it's Wangju, a designer library of the Buddhist short story. What I want to say that is, urbanization is the most urgent and important issue today in China, because urbanization process actually is trying to redistribute the social resources. It's very radical, more than a revolution. So we try to use the Biennale as a platform to discuss this kind of very urgent social issue, to criticize the over-urbanization and try to promote the rural development in the Biennale. What I want to raise the question at the end is it Biennale necessary? Because we spend a lot of money to build this kind of big and huge exploration, but after the Biennale, all this exploration was destroyed and put as rubbish. So we spend a lot of money to this. We need to think, how can we to make the Biennale as sustainable? I really like the Ichiko Tumari because every year when they build out exploration or temple architecture, they keep it in different villages as a public art. So it keeps all the world in the village. So it's good to, it's a sustainable way to organize the Triennial. But in China, most of the Biennale actually they don't have that system to archive everything, to collect everything. They spend a lot of money just posting some media report, trying to promote the development. So I think this is a very serious question in Biennale today. Thank you.
Much for staying in time and also to put out this question about sustainability of Biennales and what they contribute and also in terms of use of resources. And I think it is a very good shift also to the last Gwangju design Biennale who had a word about sustainability. And I will introduce now and ask Ian Pei to talk about that. Thank
you so much. I was chief critic for last year's Huangsheng Biennale. I worked with co-directors, Mr. Singh and I. And actually, this is the first time I've had two conferences since the design Biennale opened. The next day, I left for London to begin my sabbatical, and I discovered I'm getting traumatic flashbacks of my experience here. And I think this trauma is actually quite real and something to think about because we were talking about the decline of representation. And I think these Biennales have this issue where you have to, when you're trying to create these artistic projects within bureaucratic and political structures, I think it does create traumas, not only personally, but within the society and within the artistic community, and also within the political structure. And I think it is a relevant issue that we can go back to. My next slide, please. The title of the talk, Landscape of Language, is my own designation, which I will gradually explain. These are the two directors, Mr. Sun on the left and Wei on the right. And Mr. Sun was initially appointed, and he came up with this theme. In Korean, we will read it as Pogado Istanbul. And it is a play on the first sentence of Lao Tzu's famous exchange, we changed the do, which is originally the way, into do that designates the drawing or design. And so we ended up with this idea that design is design, it's not design. And it was a theme that was highly conceptual, it was smart, but it had certain logical manifestations in that, and so that with the play of these names and places, a name is a name, is not a name, place is a place, is not a place. So we derived certain basic conceptual categories through which we organized the exhibition. And so we ended up with these with conceptual categories that would, of course, organize the exhibition: the name, the unnamed, community, thematic, the urban bodies that we'll be seeing tomorrow, and then the idea of Biennale is, again, of course, a series of academic symposiums and meetings in which we will think through the organization of the Biennale. The unnamed was particularly a contentious part of the exhibition. The theme of the Biennale had already been established when we became involved, and it was fully in agreement with basic ideas. And he welcomed himself the idea that he would curate the unnamed section. And the unnamed had installations and ideas about design that were very unorthodox. Designs of everyday objects, controversial aspects of designs, political mechanisms that were considered design. And in the many academic meetings that we had with established design institutions such as the Museum of Modern Art, and it really was a point of contention, and there was a lot of debate about whether you could consider these things as design. And so the idea that we would really question what design was, the theme of design is not design, really did manifest itself, particularly in the selections for the unnamed. And that was really, I think, Weiwei's big contribution to it. But I think not only the nature of the unnamed, but the way that the whole Biennale was organized was, I think, what made it very peculiar and very special, I think. And the idea was that we were trying to create environments, spaces and places of interaction within the extensive exhibition spaces that we were allowed. And this is a meeting space within the exhibition hall designed by the architectural firm Office, based in Berlin and London. And in the evening when you visit the exhibition hall, you see that this installation is still in place. And I'm going to visit it for the first time actually myself. And you see that some of the walls and existing the structures that were built last year continue on this year's Art Biennale. And this was the idea of the Biennale in the first place, that we would create not just installations that represent, but also perform and interact and have the participation of spectators. And there were all sorts of different kinds of installations. A call from Gwangju. This is an installation by the Ning section on the Korean. That's Hyungmin. This is a space that I curated for the musician performer from based in Beijing. Of course, these kinds of participatory spaces in themselves are not new. But the way the curatorial team was organized was that we were a bunch of architects, really. And so the idea was that we were going to create a series of architects performative in the kind of everyday architectural spaces that we usually encounter. And so it was conceptualized where all these different categories, the place, the unplaced, the name, the unnamed, would all interact within these spaces. And normally you would think that each category would have a different space, but the idea was that they would be intermingled into each spaces, and that these exhibition spaces would consider different kinds of city spaces, and we had these ideas about that. And it was a very controversial aspect of preparation because people had different ideas. You wanted a neutral space for this, and this was digital image of what we thought would happen. And one of the fantastic moments in Paris was during the construction, we would have these abstract architectural spaces. Anything, much better than anything that Picasso has designed. You have these spaces that were empty and were architectural spaces, but then they worked as performative spaces. And so the other aspects, large aspects of last year's Biennale, the urban forest, were really a very natural extension of this idea. You have actual performing everyday spaces, not only as the forest, but also within the exhibition hall. Of course, this is not new, but I think the extent, the scale of this, we heard of exhibitions that had small scale, mid scale, but we were working under the assumption that we were working at a large scale. That this was almost an urban scale, and that we wanted a kind of environment that was actually performative. And this is an image that was presented very early in the preparation stages, and it was presented by Anna, who had done the EIP of the design Biennale. And you see that you have these languages, these signs, and within this working environment, this playful, performative environment, you have children playing. And the exhibition was one of the most, a space that had so much things to read. Actually, language was such an important part of the whole experience. And you may think that you have seen these kind of spaces, particularly in commercial spaces, where you have IKEA things. And I think that the difference last time is that we did create these spaces where things you have to read and be cognizant of, but it was a space that was everyday, that was performative, but the way that the relation between reading and language was very different from these commercial spaces. A lot of design exhibitions can become glorified commercial exhibitions, but I think what we were able to do was bring in language and science in a way that made you stop before you thought that I won't buy this thing. Before it became a commercial space. And so it became a continuous landscape in which language interacted, thought interacted with our everyday performances. Thank you very much.
Who just recently relocated from Guangzhou to Beijing, where he's directing the Capital Museum at the Royal Academy of Art in Beijing.
大家好，我很抱歉用中文发言。我的发言呢，就是从我的经历，也就是说，我从创办跟举办组织了有3届的广州3年场，到2009年之后，我到了北京中央美术学院美术馆，然后呢，也在2011年举办了北京的茶画双年展，这样一个经历来跟大家介绍这2个展览相关的一些思考。那么在我2000年开始做广东美术馆展的时候，我们开始在思考这样一个说双年展的问题。那么当时有这样一个很简单的一个想法，第一就是在中国 这种对美术史理论，包括学术理论的思考，这方面还有所建树这方面的做的是比较单薄的。第二方面就是广州这个地方，它表面上国际化，但是实际在文化方面是非常保守，也非常的不国际化的，很少的当代性。那么在这两方面呢，我思考，觉得在广州做这样一个双年展，如果能够在一些美术史理论方面，还有在这种当代艺术国际化方面做出一点工作，那可能对这个区域的文化是非常有影响的。那么在2000年开始组织到2002年呈现的第一届广州3年展。当时呢，考虑到90年代，就是20世纪90年代的中国的当代艺术这方面呢，虽然开展的轰轰烈烈，也有它的很多的特点。因为1985年的时候，1988年以来，中国现代艺术在国际上还是非常受到多的影响。但是在89之后，90年代很多艺术家移居海外，而艺术市场也进入中国，国际的关注也更多的在关注中国的一些当代艺术的还有文化的发展。但是这个阶段的中国的当代艺术并没有一个很好的一个呈现的一个机会。那么在这样一个基础上，我们开始组织了这个首届广州3年展。那么首届广州3年展就是邀请了乌洪、王庄、冯国一，还有我这4位作为策展人。那么对这个90年代中国的实验艺术做了一些梳理。那么在这个梳理的过程中，尽管我们的关注也是在中国的实验当代艺术，但是呢，我们希望从一个更开阔的一个国际平台来考虑这样一个问题，来在中国的对中国的这样一个历史阶段的作品呢，有一个更为开阔的一个视野。那么在这个展览，在这一届的专业展里面呢，我们开始探讨了一些像本土与全球的问题，像自我跟环境的问题，地点与模式的问题，包括展览制度的问题，尤其是对3年展的制度也做了一些讨论。那么在这一届里面，我们的研讨会主要是围绕着3年展的制度与创新进行一些相关的一些讨论。那么在第一届广州3年展里面，我们也希望努力的去寻找到这样一个关系，也就是说，如何将中国的问题跟国际的问题相结合进行考虑，也如何去考虑实验性的问题，还有前沿文化的问题，包括当下性和历史观的问题。那么这样来赋予广州3年展一种特殊的意义。那么这是当时的一些作品，包括方面经历的蔡国强。那么第一届广州3年展呢，为广东美术馆在中国的收藏界在中国的这样收藏当代艺术这方面做出了非常重要的一个突破。几乎在第一届的广州3年展的60-70%的作品，90年代的这一届作品呢，都为广东美术馆所收藏。那么在2005年做的第2届广州3年展，在第一届广州3年展取得了高度关注之后呢，我们在第2届的考虑方面特别邀请了胡汉族跟汉书会的这2位非常重要的国际的一个市场人来参与我们的这样一个展览的策划。他们提出了一个非常重要的一个概念，也是结合了广州地区这样一个39区39州这样一个文化概念来策划这一届的一种别样的现代性问题，也就是这个展览的题目叫别样。探讨的是一个特殊的一个现代性的问题。 因为特色现代性作为一个当下的一个文化国际文化里面往往会被探讨的在一些特殊的地区，在这个产生一种特殊的现代性尤其像珠三角这样一个地区，或者在国际上一些新生的三角洲地区、三角洲或者是一个文化概念这样一些地区呢，也带来了一些相关的问题的思考那么这次展览的最大的特点就是除了对多元的现代性的探讨的同时，更多的在考虑一种如何将一种刚才说在一个特殊的地区里面能够具有它的特殊的生产性。那么这次展览呢，除了邀请了众多的艺术家参加之外，同时还举办了一个三角洲的实验室。这个实验室呢，开展了很多文化的讨论，而同时呢，也邀请了库哈斯先生呢参与了一个很特殊的项目，就是广州美术馆的分馆时代美术馆的建设跟设计成为了这个展览的一个非常特殊的一个项目，而这个项目从设计到最后完成，成为了第3届广州3年展的一个展出的一个场所。那么这是当时的展览的一些场面，这是杨洁香的一些非常有意思的作品。这个作品上面的英文所写的是我们什么都能讲，就是讲好普通话。这是一个非常具有广东特点的一个语言，同时也体现了作为广州3年展的一种品质，也就是说坚持我们独立的一种话语不去探讨一些不去听从一些所谓的普通话话语。这是一些作品，因为时间关系，我们只能快一点。这是三角洲实验室的一个现场那么第3届广州3年展呢，从一个各宏大的话题切入探讨了一个可能说出来有点危险性的一个话题，也就是说与后殖民说再见。因为后殖民理论呢这么多年来也是具有它的一种广泛的影响力，而如何去跟一个后殖民理论进行一个挑战这也是作为这届广州3年展的一种野心，或者说一种出发点那么这个展览呢探讨的相关的问题呢一直大家也有所了解多看但是这个展览呢发展最后的发展是在这个展览2008年举办，那2009年的威尼斯双年展上面作为我们的生产之一的扎拉马拉奇呢，也在这个威尼斯双年展上举办了一个论坛，探讨与后殖民说再见的问题。而在2010年在上海双年展的时候高士明也是再次的提出这样的问题，在这样的双年展上进行展开，那么也呈现了一个作为一个双年展所抛出的理论问题，可能可以再继续的进行从不同的地区来进行探讨那么在广州3年展之后，我2009年到了北京中央美院美术馆，也就是华放美术馆那么在华放美术馆里面，我们开始思考了一个展览这个展览呢，就是我们所考虑的一个在学院的框架里面如何去做一个双年展那么如何在一个学院的这个氛围里面如何去挑战一种学院的一种制度还有利用学院的学术资源包括如何在北京这样一个缺乏一个真正的大家双年展的一个氛围里面去如何做一个双年展那么这一届的双年展呢，我们的主题就3有7也探讨了一些包括一种人类的欲望，也包括人类的规则等等，在当下社会里面的一种反应那么从4个方面，从超身体、超机器超城市、生命政治4个方面去探讨。 那么在这个4个关键的探讨里面呢，我们也保持了一个学院的一种风格吧，探讨了从各个角度，包括一些跨界的探讨，包括一些对话、工作法等等来呈现这样一个展览那么因为时间关系我们也不再多谈了，另外一下图片这是我们说美术馆大家有很多这个空间呢还是非常适合一个当代艺术的一个展示谢谢大家。这是12面美术馆。谢谢。
It's always responsibility to have people short as much experience and also have contributed so much. I want to really jump into some kind of thoughts and I remember 1997 when I saw cities on the move that was incorporated by Hyungmin and sort of progressed that was addressing the fast development of Asian mega cities and brought also a different style of exhibitions to Europe, much more process-oriented, integrated way of connecting the elements to each other. What I see here is also like now how do you address those cities, how do you deal with the people in those cities. There's such a vast development of society of what is introduced specifically also in China. Like, I think the projects that you do with Biennale have also very strong educational component. Brings about to populations that we were first country Biennale, 1.6 million visitors. This is amazing, so that they can just be outdoors everywhere. So it is the population. And I think that's a very big difference. The everyday people go into Biennale. Could you say a little bit what that brings to you as organizers, curators, and also now you are in the educational structure like a catalog? What is your relation to that? Who is your audience in your mind?
I think sitting on the move, the exhibition started in 1997. It's a very starting point to discover the topic of the conversation in Asia City. Because this is really, just as I said, this is a really urgent and important issue for the last 30 years. Urbanization is the capital and the government recognize very low cost and they serve the developer and make profit and it raises a lot of social conflict. So what we, I think Biennale should raise this kind of question to engage more people to discuss, focus on this issue, to try and provide a social solution to criticize kind of over-decision policies. Biennale is not a big party, it's a raise some question and trying to find a solution. So what I expect the audience to be some ordinary people and also the opinion leaders, intellectual, which mobilize all the different kind of power to participate, to have a deep discussion on this urgent topic today.
I think 97 and 07, and now the 5 years past that, are really important points, particularly for those countries that experienced the financial crisis in 97. And so after 07, we have this global scale economic crisis, and just a few days ago, the newspaper announced that Korea's growth rate is 1.6%, which is total panic for what Korea had experienced between, let's say, 08 and 10. So there are different phases of growth within Korea, but now we are entering this phase, and we don't think that growth rates will go back. And so we created this humongous urban situation, and now architecturally, urban-wise, we have this new task ahead, and that is, I think, very crucial the issue of the notion of representation and, I think, performance, and the way that democracy has evolved, the way that citizens express themselves has evolved within the past 15 years, that we have passed the issue of representation of democracy. And now, I think, these large-scale artistic projects can, in fact, become an intermediary mechanism in these new forms of participation, in new forms of democracy that we are desperately trying to find.
有关公共就是公众的参与问题，或者对在工作的影响方面，我经历了2个美术馆，这2个美术馆，上广东美术馆是一个公共的一个美术馆。那么我们所做的相关的包括双年展还好，我们更多的希望在一个公众的一个世界里面去形成影响。也正如我刚才所谈到的，说双年展我们当时的一个起因，更多的是在推动当代艺术或者当代文化思考这样一种工作，在广州这样一个民众里面去产生它的意义。那么经过这10年的一个努力，我们看到了在2008年我们所做的广州3年展的向拓殖民说再见这样一个非常会式的一个理论主题底下的一个双年展，而我们这一届的观众是非常非常多，到了最后闭幕那一天还是上百。那么也说明了一个在这样的一个双年展的工作里面，其实很重要一点就是如何去培养一个当地的一个公众使他们有一种真正的参与的意识。其实我一直在觉得中国的美术馆的工作最大的问题就是它首先没有一个公共空间的意识，也就是说在这样一个美术馆的空间里面，如何去培养公众能够在这里去积极的参与和培养，而且参与去发表意见，去能够达到一个跟艺术家跟策展人共同有个互动的这样一个可能性那么这是一个我们要为这去努力的。而在中央美院因为是一个学术机构学院的一个美术馆，这美术馆呢，我们更希望在多方公共参与的是更希望强调这种知识的公共性的问题，也就是说，如何使我们的更有效的知识在一个开阔的公共领域里面去形成一种具有更有批判性更有建设性的一种东西。
Specifically, as we're talking about China, also in Korea, artistic practice was always seen as a kind of a form of resistance to existing structures, and it was kind of like a moment where people were outspoken and sometimes living with risks. And do you see now that in the countries visiting across the architecture biennales, the artistic dimension becomes more of a world entertainment, or like it's a very different function, or does the artistic kind of complex still have this kind of possibility, or has it changed also?
Maybe it's a little bit nice in the sense somehow we're involved with some of these projects, also exhibition-based. I guess the biggest one we mentioned I think really interesting is that we're in such a desperate situation that almost non-sectors in our society could kind of propose a solution to this increasingly kind of privatized political and social system and economic system. Only we hope that art provides a kind of refuge or kind of space for somehow symbolically claim back social equality. And I guess this longest way of thinking that really think we can stand out contemporary art, especially events like biennials, would provide some kind of terrain interruption along the process of this social tendency. And this interruption actually has very interesting kind of double characteristics. One is utopian. On the other hand, we are trying to reach out to reality, change reality. So we are kind of navigating this really interesting contradiction and tension. And that maybe is also another more challenging question for people who actually support why all these countries, why politicians would like to support why the financial sector would somehow provide resources to the and so on. So everyone actually using art for its own favor. On the other hand, it's up to the actors of the Biennale, namely the artists, the creators, and so on, organizers, to use these opportunities with all kinds of intentions to continue to interrupt this social transformation.
This is a personal view, but I think in the case of Korea, the utopian history really ended in the late 1980s. And so that was, so in the 1990s you went to a post-Marxist period, post-ideological period. I think it extended, of course you have political division. I think the fine line between entertainment and critical, and I think in these kinds of large-scale Biennale, which is funded by representation government, that it needs to have a lot of people come to the Biennale. And so you have these kind of popular strains within the way we're trying to bring people in. And then you of course have pernicious concepts. So to say that you have this utopian strain, I think it's quite unrealistic, and in the case of Korea, it's historically not correct. And so there is this fine, I don't think I would call it an interruption, but I think it brings in mechanisms in which people who want to go beyond representation, they want to participate in the democratic process. And perhaps they can be deluded by entertaining artists. Maybe entertaining, they should think that they're doing something, but at the same time, there's always that fine line. So participation, performance is always necessary in these cases. And so even if it's not utopian, there is this possibility of real change within these mechanisms. Right?
This couple of years, I often can see a lot of this public program in a lot of museums. They're trying to engage the public publication. But I think all they, for example, they just make all the artists very funny, very playful, very entertainment, to follow the family audience interesting. It's because all the museum actually there was the funding actually from the tax, right? So the only people who criticize the museum or your exhibition, the art piece is so difficult to understand for the public. Then the museum has to reduce the academic or thoroughful level to follow the only people who's interested. That's not so good. I have had some experience in 1930, 1940, some Chinese intellectual, they work in the countryside. They try to teach the farmer to learn the writing and reading. They have a very good method. They actually start their work from the work the farmers have. They did not educate, but try to activate their opportunity. So this is a very good method also to develop so-called public education program today for the museum or for the analysis.
确实，艺术就像大家所说的，就是说它有多种可能性而且它在实现一种跟社会的包括政治之间的一种特殊关系的时候，它有 它的灵活性还有它的多样性但是它所面对的东西又是很多层面的，包括说然后刚才所说的少量的问题，包括可能有些说明长或者也是我们在探讨的是更为宏大的或者更为开阔的一些理论上的一些问题那么这样的一些工作，我认为说作为算命家好，作为美术馆好，都应该去进行一个努力但是我不觉得说作为一个算命家就能够解决多少问题我只是觉得他在思维的部分里面是一个部分而已。而政府的参与或者多多的干预或者多多的支持，是不是就是好事当然，我们期待政府更多的支持和成为好事，但是呢，也在现实中也有很多是不好的事。
That's a very good point to end. This article, again, I must say, it's very interesting because I have visited three Biennales and Triennials, and it's just fun to see the last of the way people really all different societal classes and structures. That's very different to the representation in certain classes and and I think that's something we all should use for further debates. We will have now an opportunity to use the conference. Also, that was a conference happening in the conference, so we are almost back in time if we are journey basically 20 minutes, and I think that's a realistic goal, and then we're back on track. Please use tonight if we don't want silence, we just have so much to introduce and show, and we have bus travels, we have walks with the webinars, etc. Please use related to your questions to each other. So thank you so much for your patience to listen to all of us, and we have a break, and then we continue with an interview. This has to be always with two brilliant artists. This No1 and which have participated in this year's Biennale festival. So at 4:30 we meet back here for the interview.